representative for the great state of Indiana. So we are kicking off America's Miss Sweetheart's very first live forum. It is a panel discussion style that we are doing today, and we will be talking about meaningful topics that are affecting Americans today, especially people within our generation. And for our very first group, we will be discussing how mental health impacts people within the pandemic and whether cancel culture is here to stay. Thank you.
So I am Bethany Wheatley, your Miss Delaware, and as someone who has suffered from anxiety and depression, I was really worried about how the pandemic was going to affect me personally, but luckily enough for me, I actually feel like COVID changed my life. I was able to go from working, 3 jobs to be able to actually finally collect myself, and it just opened a world of opportunity for me. Even being in the house, I really took a leap of faith because I needed to change some things in my health, and COVID has helped me tremendously, but I do worry for the fact that, being in the house, I finally got to see things I was missing out on, or just thoughts and feelings I put to the side and kept myself busy for that I was able to process and things like that, which did, make my anxiety kind of go through the roof occasionally. But at the same time, I was able to really just make a huge change, and it was very beneficial for me.
I'm Krista DeMayo, the representative from New Jersey, and I actually work with developmentally disabled adults, and some of them on top of their developmental disabilities have mental illnesses like depression and anxiety, and one client in particular throughout the pandemic, from being stuck inside the house and her schedule of getting up and going to program being interrupted, has been in and out of the hospital because her mental illness has kind of started to take over because she's not getting that same outside energy that she's used to.
Yeah, I think that is a really good point that you brought up, because I'm a mental health therapist, so working with my client population, which is foster families, but mostly youth, I think that I've seen really an increase in, I would say, some behavioral changes in how they respond to some triggers, and doing a lot of virtual work has been very difficult for a lot of my clients, and I think even for myself, being on Zoom for a while has really been affecting my ability to connect with people, I would say.
And I've been working, seeing in how other people have been acting, because, I travel all the time, so I was just plain at home sitting there. So I was working more with the homeless, and for them, they didn't have the aspects of, food and water. They didn't have an outlook. They didn't have the shelters. They were closing them out. So it was more so, seeing how many other people were being affected, too, not just us, was a very surprising fact.
And for me, I've been a director at an after-school program now for 3 years. We had 75 kids, and you never know what kind of homes these kids are coming from, and you grow attached to them too. So my anxiety was also at a high because I was worried about what these kids were going through, what was going through their mind, and it's something that I never thought I would see kids go through, let alone myself, you know what I mean? But kids don't understand, and they don't know how to reach out to people and explain their feelings. So that also made my anxiety go. Mental health during this pandemic has been huge.
Right, and I think that what I feel really proud about is, especially within my state, how quickly we've been able to utilize resources and ensure that people get the treatment and the care that they need. So while it has been really, really difficult, I would say the upside is that mental health professionals have been doing really, really well in addressing these issues at hand.
And it was a big change, too, with the children to see them, and we don't know their home life. So we don't know if abuse is going on, or underprivileged kids, if they're getting the food and nourishment that they needed. We didn't know the situation. So seeing their mental health, and now school's back opening, we're seeing these kids changing. We don't know how they were during the pandemic. We have missed them for 5 to 6 months. So now it's our job to make a difference and see these kids and help them better.
And also for me, knowing that I have anxiety and depression and a history of it, I know that I'm the type of person that I need to find something to stay busy. So when I was saying earlier that I focused on like my health and wellness, I found like exercises to do at home and found things like I could love and do and, you know, spend time with my family. Like that was the most important part to me that I never got to see and spend time with my family, and that brought my family like back together. And that COVID is a rough thing, but for me it was great.
Yeah, I agree with the exercise and the family part, because my family's been doing the same thing. We also have 2 dogs, so for us to go out and get that exercise every day just by walking the dog, sometimes going on a family walk, yeah, it's been really difficult to be stuck in the house, but I feel like we've also reconnected as a family.
And you know what's nice too is during that time, I knew that I needed to reach out to family and friends and things like that, because I know how serious mental health is, and I know how important checking in and how much it means to people, because it meant a lot to me when it happened. You know what I mean? When they would reach out to me. So I made it a point to check in on them and to see like how they were feeling, if there's anything I could do to help, because when you're running nonstop, you're not thinking about what's going on in life or what you're stressed about or what you can and can't do, because you're just rolling with it. And when you have the time to process your thoughts, sometimes it can be a rough time. So I just appreciate the people who checked in on me, and I hope they enjoyed checking in on them also.
And even so, like, you could tell that people's mental health was going in like high and lows because the grocery stores were empty. Like people couldn't get cleaning products. They couldn't get things to take care of themselves or their families. So their health was degrading. They were increasing. It was all over the place. So more people didn't know what to do. And that was like a situation here in Pennsylvania. We had to wear masks. We were shut down. We just opened back up a couple weeks ago. So for us, we were in the later process, but it was difficult for so many people here.
Absolutely. I was actually petrified to leave the house because I have had severe asthma my entire life. And, you know, hearing on the news and things like that, that if you had a weak immune system or if you suffered from any other, like, illness, like, it would probably affect you worse. So even then, you know, too, raising that anxiety through the roof, it was a scary time. And I'm just glad we're all finally getting through it. And, yeah.
I do think that it's been a really difficult change for everybody, but like you said, we've actually adapted really well. I would like to ask that this question that kind of went back to what you guys were talking about, building that connection and talking to family members more. Would you guys say that this has kind of changed what is important to you?
Without a doubt. I was so busy living a crazy lifestyle that I never took the time to know that at any moment anything could happen. And, you know, I knew I always had my family there for me and I would always be there for them. But at the same time, I never took the time to, like, check in on people and know, like, ask how their day's going or what it is, like, are you going through anything? Like, how can I help you? And during the pandemic, it literally opened my eyes to so many different things and opportunities and how important, like, my family and friends are, because I'd be lost without them.
I mean, I know for me too, like, with still going to work throughout the whole thing, I mean, New Jersey shut down pretty quickly when the pandemic started, and I was an essential worker, and I was the only person from my house physically leaving and going to work. Everyone else started doing school online, working at home. And in April, all of the clients in the group whom I was working with tested positive. So then I had the thing of I still had to go to work and take care of them with full PPE and everything. But then I had to worry about, am I going to bring it home to my family? Or one of them going to get it simply because I have to go to work?
So then how are you coping with that? Or how are you processing that?
I mean, that was in April, so it was very stressful at the time because I knew, like, as soon as I got home, I had to go right into the bathroom, take a shower, make sure everything I wore at work was cleaned right away to make sure any germs were gone. And my mom was stressed out because she didn't get to see her new grandbaby because she didn't want anything to happen. And once I was negative, it was like this whole wall of stress just went away from the house.
And, you know, a lot of people too, which was another eye-opener for me, is like sports. I've grown up being like a 3-sport athlete my entire life, and I coach softball back at home, and I my heart broke for these kids who lost seasons, and you know, the fact that if it was your senior season, you know, you don't get that back anymore. I can't imagine not having my senior year of softball. Like that, softball is another outlet for me, which also probably contributed on my mental illness with anxiety and depression, and it was an outlet. And I just feel bad for these kids who couldn't have sports and just sporting events or being able to go and watch. Some people just enjoy watching, and everything was cut off from us, and it was rough.
And that's how my students were too, because I coach dance, and their competition season was canceled. All the baton students' competitions were canceled, and we went to Zoom, but that still isn't the same. You got to have that interaction with the students. They need that outlook, but they weren't still the same. You would still get a message that was like, hey, can you talk to me for a little bit, or can you help me with this situation? And it was hard because you can't be there for them, because you're putting your family at risk then if you're going to someone else's house.
I mean, I also coach cheerleading, so I understand what you're saying there, because we tried doing Zoom for a while, and that was very difficult. I mean, last week we finally were able to start in-person practices again, and honestly, I was very proud of my athletes, because even the 5-year-olds kept their masks on the entire time. Like, they all understood the importance of, I can't go hug my friend, which was honestly pretty sad, because I know the kids so well. All they wanted to do was greet each other with a hug, because they haven't seen each other in months, and they couldn't.
See, I think that's a really interesting point, because we have to wear masks at ballet practice, and I think that this is something that's going to come up later on as we continue working out the way that we are. But I'm in a studio for 9 hours a day, and it gets really, really difficult, and that in itself raises my anxiety, having to wear a mask to work out. So that's going to be something that's interesting that we'll have to address later down the road, I think.
Yeah, it's hard though, because some people's skin break out then too, and you can't breathe. The asthma on top of it, there's just so many causes then that come from wearing a mask that it is another thing that you have to deal with on top of it then. And it's hard, especially with the younger kids. For them, that's a even more difficult process than for us just to put on a mask to walk outside.
And our next topic is cancel culture here to stay?
I mean, I hope it's not here to stay, because I'm a firm believer in everybody should get a second chance. If you're willing to, take accountability for your actions and ask for forgiveness, there's a lot of things in life that I'm not proud about, but I take the time and either, apologize for what's happened, or, figure out a way that I can make it better. I don't settle for anything, and I feel like if anything can happen in life, and if you don't really mean to do something and you apologize or take credit and just accountability, I just feel like everybody deserves a second chance.
And I think social media is the worst when it comes to it, because everyone will pile on to you at once. When one person starts it, it's a rippling effect, and everyone will continue on about it. And that's how the cancel culture continues to grow. And it's something we need to change and eliminate.
And I would agree, because I think that so much of maturity and so much of being able to communicate with others is having the desire to extend grace, right? So we all have wronged others, and others will wrong us, right? And so I think that accountability piece kind of comes back to, how aware are you of the process of being human? And so I would say that also I hope that cancel culture doesn't stay, because empathy is so important in the process of connecting with others.
And just like how we were talking about the pandemic on mental health, how do we know what someone was going through at the time for their actions? So I'm just a firm believer in second chances.
I mean, if someone's there apologizing and they're sincerely saying, listen, I know I messed up. I know I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. This could go on what people can say and do wrong for people to cancel them. But for them to get up there and really apologize takes a lot out of somebody who knows that they're wrong and has all of these people canceling them. So to be able to get up there and then forgive them and just stop with the hate, I think right now with the mental health, people's mental health, everyone's more stressed out because of the pandemic. People are saying things they don't necessarily mean. And I feel like along with their apologies, the forgiveness also has to come, and the love for just all of humankind needs to follow.
I think that as a mental health therapist, this is probably one of the greater lessons, that sharing space with somebody and holding space for somebody generally requires a lot of forgiveness. But then I've also seen how forgiveness is so impactful for my clients, for even my friends, and validating that their experience is real, that their mistakes don't define them, has really has made people grow in ways that I didn't think was possible before I went into the profession. So I will always say that if we can give people second chances and we see growth, whether that's linear or not, then I would take the chance.
And it needs to start now, not in like 10 years from now or anything from that. It needs to be the lower man doing it and then work its way up, because we look up to so many people, and that's where we need to start it now and continue that.
And I think there's a fine line of severity of the situation. You know, it depends on like how serious it is, but at the same time, I just feel like if somebody is willing to even, like, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, you and me just apologizing to you or to worldwide. It's the fact that the apology is what matters, that someone took the time to take accountability for their actions, and that they know what they did was wrong, and that they're willing to fix it.
All right, ladies, our time is up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica Indio, your Miss New York.
I am Jordan Hudson, your Miss Massachusetts.
I am Demetria Adrian McNeil, your Miss South Carolina.
And I'm Bethany Wheatley, your Miss Delaware.
And today our group will be discussing public figures and public scrutiny, as well as social media's effects on American youth. So I guess we'll get started with public figures and public scrutiny. And I'm sure this is a very hot topic right now, especially considering an election year. Everyone's propagating different information on social media platforms and exchanging different ideas with people. But something that I definitely consider, and I'm sure all of us do at some point when we're thinking about those kind of public figures, whether they are presidential candidates, whether they're celebrities, or even people like ourselves, is that if you're going to administer criticism to those types of individuals, ensure that it's constructive criticism. Nobody benefits when all you're doing is putting out negativity into the world without offering real solutions. So I think that going forward, like I said, in such an important year in America, we really need to consider that even if there are people we disagree with and perspectives that maybe we don't see eye to eye on, if you're going to respectfully disagree, then offer solutions and try to collaborate for better ideas.
Yeah, following off of that, I really do believe that social media and public scrutiny are... I truly believe that these two topics are extremely tied together, and the fact that we have an outlet where we can be so communicative with the public figures, whether they're political or celebrities or something, that it just gives us a resource to do that, and there's no really kind of face for it, so it makes it easier for us to do that.
It actually kind of breaks my heart because, you know, being so big in the public eye, obviously there's a lot of attention on you. So, like, just because you make a mistake, not everybody needs to know about it. You know what I mean? And everybody, if you make a mistake, so what? Move on from it. Take accountability and just change. And for me, we'll just use example, like, I'm so upset about Britney Spears. She's an amazing person, and why people feel she deserves to go through the things that she does, it's heartbreaking. And I believe she deserves much better than what, like, the media is doing to her.
I would like to add that we as people have to remember that public figures are humans. We can't be so judgmental and so critical when at the end of the day they're just humans who have certain talents or special skills or professionalism to get them where they are in life. So we just have to be mindful of how we view people, how we attack them, because that's what's going on often. And also just being mindful how you view public figures yourself as well, because that could be kind of a dangerous thing as well mentally, being that some people could end up worshiping certain people. So you just have to just be mindful how you view people, with the things you say, and just remember that at the end of the day, everyone is human and everyone makes mistakes. We're not perfect, and no one is perfect, and you shouldn't even push the fact that you should be perfect, because like's perfect.
And at the end of the day, I ask myself, what if that were me? What if that were me in that person's shoes? Would I want this to happen to me? Would I be okay with myself treating someone or exposing them for things that they've done, knowing that I've made mistakes in my life? And I just could never, my mom has always taught me that treat people the way you want to be treated. And I've lived that way my entire life, and I feel like other people should do the same thing.
I feel like by being so harsh on people, especially in the media or however it is, I feel like it really takes away people's ability to grow, because if we are holding people accountable, I believe that we should always hold people accountable, but if we are holding things to people that are years old, because I see a lot of stuff being dug up in the media, I feel like that's really detrimental to people's growth, because I see stuff that I've posted in the past 5 years that surface in my Facebook memories, and I am just blown away. Nothing like really terrible, but just really silly stuff, and that's just not the person who I am now. It's not the person who I was 5 years ago at all.
No, absolutely. And piggybacking off a little bit about what you had said about humanity and touching on empathy, I think that when we put people on such pedestals or fail to recognize their humanity, we're really building up barriers to address stigmas, because these people who are in these very public positions have an opportunity to leverage their platforms to recognize things that are encompassing inequality, mental illness, issues that are really plaguing our society. But if we're holding them to such a standard or not acknowledging their humanity and giving them the opportunity and the space to speak to those subjects that really we all could benefit from hearing, then how can we ever grow as a society if we don't instill beliefs in our public figures and also give them the opportunity to address those beliefs?
I agree, and we live in a world of change, and for me, I don't understand, we're all unique, so I don't understand why if someone does something like out of the ordinary, just because it's out of the ordinary to you, it might not be out of the ordinary to somebody else. We don't know their situation, we don't know why it is they could be acting out, we don't know why it is that they want to just express themselves. We live in a world where we're supposed to express our feelings and ourselves, and that's why I'm glad to live in the generation that I am today, because I'm proud to be able to speak my mind and just express everything. It's hard. That was deep, man. I'm serious. I'm serious.
And that's what these conversations are
right.
for.
Yeah.
Right. But we have to remember, depression is real. Celebrities, public figures, people that's higher up, they have emotions too. They have a mental that they have to protect as well. But imagine if you were in their shoes and everyone was attacking you, how would you handle it? Or how would you persevere through that? Because I know it's a consistent thing. Different things happen throughout the years. Like you said, things are being dug up, being all over the media. So we just have to remember we're human.
And it could also be the same way as a pageant title holder.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I used to be petrified to go out of the house without makeup or mascara or, not dressed a certain way, because I thought someone would judge me. I thought someone would take a picture of me and be like, oh, this is what she looks like without makeup on. And it took me years to finally get to a point in life that I'm proud of everything about myself. And if somebody wants to express that and show that they're proud of something, then they need to go for it.
And Americans are very nosy people. Just love the gossip and love the juice, the tea, whatever you want to call it. So it's it fuels something in people where they just like to see, you heard about this, mind your business. We don't like to mind our business.
Yeah, going off of that, I think she makes a really good point, but I think that social media gives us more access to that. It used to be just magazines and tabloids, but now it is social media, and we're just so involved with other people that things circulate so fast. It's just rumors and gossip, and television is just, it's everywhere now, and I think that is one of the dangers of social media at this point, and I think it is going to be affecting the younger generations as they're growing up with technology from a younger age, because they're going to grow up with media propaganda and all of these awful things.
And circling back to a really important word, accountability. By no stretch of the imagination, and not to put words in our mouth, everyone's mouths, but we're not saying that these people who are in the public eye shouldn't be held accountable for their actions. They absolutely have to acknowledge mistakes they've made and even triumphs. We really should celebrate the triumphs they've made. But what we need to understand when it comes to that accountability is that we also have an accountability and a power to let them know that they have a responsibility to fulfill in their roles, whether that's being, like we said, a political figure, a role model to young women, someone who has the power to influence marketplaces and economies. We have to make sure that they're held accountable and create conversations that are courageous, constructive, and above all, just positive.
I think we have a super long way to go in terms of social media and really figuring out what the best route is, because social media really is all over the place in terms of age and topics, and that we really need to really find a way to just make it more of a controlled environment, because right now it seems that everybody is doing everything on it, and that we need to find the most positive way to be using it.
I think that's going to be difficult, being the rate of the advancement of social media. So going on to how it affects the youth, it can be very poisoning, because the youth is very innocent-minded, but social media isn't. So, and it's so accessible. Little kids have phones now, like 5-6 year olds, and even babies. It blows my mind how quickly they're able to use technology. So it can be very poisoning to the mind if you're not mentally strong, or if you haven't been raised around certain people to keep you in the right direction. And if you are maybe like an attention seeker, like it's so much that goes into it, and it's different ways that it can affect the youth. But seeing how the youth is not the youth from like years ago, even before we were born, they're much more mature. So, and I think social media has a lot to do with that.
I think growing up with some more of the social media as opposed to like what my parents had and stuff, I see a huge increase in cyberbullying and being able to pick on people, and that kids at a young age don't really understand the impact of their words that they're putting out there. And I think that is going to end up biting a lot of people later on in the future, because we are holding people accountable.
I think the bigger picture for me is just if everyone could just at one point take a step back and think about like what it is that you're doing and saying, and taking a step back to see, thinking about what it is they could be going through. I've grown up being someone who sees two sides to every story, and with that being said, I just am the person, I want to know more detail as to why you chose to make the decisions you made before I would ever, nor would I ever, just publicly say someone did something wrong, because I would be devastated if that had happened to me. So at the end of the day, I just wish everybody could just take a step back.
I've personally been working on not holding other people to such a horribly perfect standard.
You're a perfectionist.
Well, no, I seriously think that on social media I see things and I forget that other people are human too, and if I ever want people to forgive me for my mistakes, I really think that I've been too hard on other people, and that I need to recognize other people's growth.
And then we have to also realize that social media is a place where people can be who they really are not in real life. So even the lifestyles that they're living, they can be maybe going through a whole mental breakdown, but they look like they're always traveling, or living a luxurious life. So we have to keep that in the back of our heads, like some people are just human at the end of the day. That's how I'm gonna end my conversation each time.
And for me, I think social media is both a blessing and a curse, because depending on, like I said, what I'm going through at the time, I had struggled really bad with cystic acne, and I was suffering from depression, anxiety. I got bullied for my acne being really bad in high school. And at the time when I would get on social media, I would constantly compare myself to other women, and that is just not a good life to live. But at the same time, when I overcame the acne and the bullying and the depression and the anxiety, I grew as a person, and I was able to share my story to inspire. Over 300 women have reached out to me about what I've overcome, and that to me is nothing comparable to like what I was going through at the time. Like it's the journey for me, but I just feel like social media can be just really good, but it depends on your situation, what you're going through, because you guys are right. Like a lot of stuff on social media is not what you see like out in person and things like that. But if it makes them, if someone's like editing their photos to make them feel beautiful, if that's what it makes them feel beautiful, then great.
I think we sort of segued actually into our second topic. I don't know if we did that on purpose about social media's effects on our youth. But yeah, I'm going to reflect a little bit on my own experience. I'm 26 years old. You know, I'm a young person in real life, but in the media age, I'm like a dinosaur because I probably I had MySpace. I don't know if kids even know what MySpace is anymore. But
I didn't have MySpace.
But circling back to my point is because I think I was growing up through a very transitional period for social media platforms, I had my parents' guidance. I learned about stranger danger. I learned that they had to be my friends and my connections on those platforms, so I was always conscious of what I was posting and putting out there. But throwing it back to you guys, do any of you have personal experiences of your own growing up in your youth that you felt like helped or maybe hindered your experience with social media?
I definitely, when I was talking about like different types of bullying, cyberbullying was huge when I was a teenager. So many people, if you were arguing with someone or it doesn't matter who it was, but like you would see people fighting on social media, and I'm like, this is not the time or the place. You know what I mean? But it was sad as the person because then you're embarrassed for them. Like or sometimes personally someone commented on something about me. Someone had commented and called me like a crater face one time, and it had broke my heart. I deleted all of social media. I didn't want to get back on. I didn't even want to show my face back at school. I was so embarrassed at the time. But looking back at it now, I'm thankful it happened because I wouldn't be who I am today without it.
I think that when I was much younger and social media was really on the rise, that we weren't paying so much attention to the fact that things weren't real because people were putting things out there, and it was much easier to compare ourselves to these images that had been airbrushed and been photoshopped. And, you know, I think that has hindered all of us for probably a good portion of our growing up. Even some of us are older, but I think that's hindered for a lot of us. And I think that in pageantry, it has given me the tools to not compare myself to other women. And when I see women that look, like amazing on social media, I'm just like astounded by them, and I don't feel the need to compare myself to them. And I feel like pageantry has given me all of these tools that I've needed to kind of counter the negativities that have been kind of shoved at me.
I'll say during my collegiate years, I felt a little pressured being that I dance professionally, just getting content out every week. So, or, the views, or, okay, how fast can I get some views? Like, how many views? Like just being pressured to always put out content too. Now I'm to a place where I can wake up and just remove all my social media out before like making an announcement. Sometimes I will make an announcement like, hey, it's gonna be like a month, or so, however long. But I think it's very essential that we should do things and cleanse and detox from the social media, detach from social media, because it could be so overwhelming.
Yeah, I think that we definitely all need to take breaks from social media, and that it has really distracted us from the outside life. Like, a lot of the times people are traveling, but they're not traveling to enjoy traveling. They're traveling to take pictures on social media, and I feel like that really is affecting our real life experiences. And so when we're traveling and when we're doing things that cannot be on social media, I think that we should really do better to take advantage of that.
But at the same time, as much as like the situation I was going through, social media was rough to look at for me because I was comparing myself to so many other women. And but it's also super important for like promoting. There's so many people who have gotten jobs off of social media because they're promoting themselves or their business. Like, I'm a photographer. I would not be where I am today without social media. And like, it's also important to express yourself. And if you're proud about something, I think you should share it.
I agree.
So.
I completely agree with you, as long as it's not taking away from other aspects of, like your life.
And we're getting a little close to the end, so I'm just going to put a little final thought here for social media. As far as us being role models and encouraging youth to use social media in a responsible way, I think something that young children should understand when they're going forward to those platforms that are very visually engaging is that when they see something and they feel the need to criticize it, that knee-jerk reaction is what society has told them to think. And then what they should come forward afterwards was thinking, what do I think and what do I believe in? And if they believe genuinely that everyone's beautiful and has the ability to express themselves on these platforms unabashedly and authentically, that's the kind of message we want them to get out there.
And to close it out for me also, my parents taught me that anything you post on social media, it will be found. So if you don't want something, if you don't say something that you don't want someone else to see, because I can guarantee you within the second that it's up, someone has seen it and it's gone everywhere. And my parents have grown up teaching me that. So if you don't want to be negative and, people portray you as something you're posting on social media, don't post it.
What do you think? My last thing I would say is for the youth, I solely support entrepreneurship. I see that's rising tremendously since the pandemic as well. And you're digging into your crafts. So take advantage of expressing that on social media. That's how you can use it positive.
I'm sorry. I believe that it is our job as title holders to be those positive influences, and I think that our platform gives us the opportunity to teach the younger generations about how we can use social medias properly and kind of just how to navigate it, because I think that social media is on the rise. It is not going anywhere anytime soon, and so the more that we can do as title holders to promote goodness, that I think that the better off that the younger people will be, because at the end of the day, we are influences. We are influencers. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I am Kayshauna Montano, your Miss Connecticut.
I am Demetria Adrian McNeil, your Miss South Carolina.
I am Nyla Harrell, your Miss Georgia Sweetheart.
And I'm Jessica Indio, your Miss New York.
So the topics that we will be discussing are ending human trafficking and social activism and justice. So to open up the topic of ending human trafficking, I know that it's a heavy topic. It's a growing issue for sure. And to put some perspective on it, globally, it gains about $150 billion per year. And so I think that a lot of it is kids ages 12 to 14, and they're getting lured on social media. And so I think in talking about ending it, it's important to discuss it with our youth and to make sure that they're aware of the lures, because it's easy to say stranger danger when it's in person, but I think when it comes to someone that might be posing as someone that is 16 years old and their age or something like that, it's just really easy for kids to just believe that it's the person behind on Instagram or Facebook. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And I also would like to say that the first step in ending it is addressing it and having those conversations in our homes and in our classrooms to try and connect with children in a way where you can really understand if they're safe in their homes, because human trafficking can happen anywhere to anybody. And it is real. It's prevalent, especially in my city of Georgia, because Atlanta is a hot spot. So I have to be extra careful wherever I'm going, even as an independent woman, because there's real traffickers out there, whether you see them or not. It could be anybody, and you just want to be careful.
And like you said, acknowledging what's really going on. I just shared a post yesterday about the media not sharing trafficking. How's the media not sharing the news of humans, kids being missing? I have a huge issue with this because it's not being targeted. And the problem is the people that's in the power some of them are being arrested as well. So I think that's the problem where when is it going to really end? Because how long has it been going on that we don't really know about? There's so many things that we don't really know what's been going on behind closed doors. So where do we really start?
And you guys all made great points about education, I think, ultimately. And while I'm thankful for the education I received, I feel like I didn't really get a chance to address human trafficking well until my college careers with my Women's Empowerment Club on campus, where they were trying to have us go out, advocate, and bring awareness to these issues and sex trafficking. But for it to get to that point where I had to be an adult, I think it's time that we create more cohesive, collaborative conversations to really make our youth understand. Like you were saying about social media platforms, maybe kids aren't aware because we're afraid, and there's so much stigma around this subject that we don't feel the need to discuss it, even though discussing it and addressing it would be in the best interest of our youth.
Even teachers, I think it'll be a great thing for teachers to speak about this in classes.
Absolutely, and there's tons of organizations and programs that surround promoting the end of human trafficking, and it just takes a simple search on your phone and trying to connect with those resources just so you know that your children are safe, and not only children but young adults and teens like us as title holders, we need to be protected as well. It can, like I said, it can happen to anybody, so it's important for us to try to connect with those resources and promote ending human trafficking so that everyone is more aware that this issue is something that is global. It's not just in our communities, it's not just the missing children, it's everywhere. And we need to talk about it more so that we can put a stop to this.
And I think that, so building off of the title holder, I think that also in putting it in the media more, as you were saying, because it's not expressed as much as I'd like to see as well. I think it's interesting because we can also provide that insight. I know right now there's already title holders, like I've seen Miss Connecticut Teen USA, she has been sharing, that's her whole platform. And so I think that we can provide that outlet to just make people more aware as well.
Absolutely. I feel like that is a part of our responsibility as title holders to bring awareness in different areas, whether it's about cancer, trafficking, you name it. I feel like that's our duty to do so. So I agree.
And I would also like to say, although we're talking about this issue in a generalized sense and how we should bring awareness to it, I think we should also start paying attention to the victims who are in those circumstances and figuring out strategic ways that we can actually help them get out of that situation. Because for the most part, human trafficking is a psychological form of abuse. And they're stuck in that situation regardless of their gender, their age, whatever it may be. It's still abuse at the end of the day, and it's still not okay. And so if we can help them find their happy place and help them escape any way that we can, it is our duty to do so that everybody has an equal opportunity to live a happy, healthy life.
And I think a big barrier that prevents so many people in our communities from maybe spreading this information or figuring out how to help is, like I said, the stigma behind it, and probably, honestly, the ignorance to acknowledge that it's happening in our own backyards. We think of it as a problem that exists in a different land, in a different country, but it's probably happening right here. So if we're able to have these open conversations about not only prevention, but absolutely helping the victims, the survivors, the title holders, like you said, maybe I'm not the resource, but now I know a friend I can turn to who can provide me the right direction and steer me to the places that I can go where I know I can lend a helping hand. And I think that's how we all have to be advocates and, title holders in our own right to help people. We're being role models, and that starts with helping our communities.
Because if we're not doing it, imagine the parents who are not doing it in their homes, and then, or if there's broken homes, and like you said, it can happen from anyone. Could be within that organization, or dealing with it. So it's about being money hungry as well. So unfortunately, it can even be your neighbor, your family, or a long distance family member who was just maybe hungry for money and willing to sacrifice. So it is really our duty to really be courageous and have these conversations with kids and even adults as well.
Yeah, and I think stemming from survivors, I think it was shocking for me when I was looking up more statistics on this. that a lot of the survivors in past years were from foster homes. Yeah, and I think, so that's personal to me because I'm adopted, and so I still keep in touch with my foster family, and they're amazing, and but I think that I've met many people that haven't gotten out of foster care and they just don't feel that secureness in their life, and so I think it might be a little bit easier to victimize people. And so I think in trying to mend that aspect, it might be helpful to provide more organizations for people to go to if they might not feel as secure in their home environment, whatever they define home as, because sometimes they might not define home as their foster home, unfortunately. So I just was very shocked to find that.
Wow.
And it's true that I think probably, even though this could happen to anyone, it probably is the most vulnerable who are preyed upon. And I know that was something, again, in my college years we discussed in a group, because a lot of our international students and kids who were coming from far away, who were uncomfortable in the environment they were in, were susceptible to something called being sugar babies. They became financially dependent on older people who were honestly exploiting them. And that's just one step away from being caught up in something as tragic and devastating as human trafficking. So we really need to take more proactive, preventative measures as well to make sure that our most vulnerable citizens feel secure and safe.
So I think that maybe it would be a good time to move towards social activism and justice. I know there's not really a great segue to that because they're kind of very, very different.
Heavy topic.
Both heavy though,
yes. They do tie in, but they're both very heavy. So I think with social activism, it's so prevalent right now. It couldn't be more prevalent in the time that we're living in. And I think that a lot of the times we hear most of the negatives and everything, but I like to focus on kind of the beauty of it. Like in these few short months, look at how far we have come. Like look at how unified people have come together to focus on something that they're passionate about. I don't think I've seen that passion in such a long time, and it's just kind of beautiful to see that sprouting, and I hope to see it keep growing.
Yeah, I agree, and I would like to say that social justice is really what produces change in our country. It's getting together with our communities, starting peaceful protests, or getting involved and trying to really speak our voice and raise our voice on issues that we either are really passionate about or we just are upset about. And I know as a social activist myself, I have had the opportunity to go to a few peaceful protests in Atlanta, especially during the BLM movements and all of the things surrounding Ahmaud and George, and many of those really influential stories that took place in our country. And so having the opportunity to just get involved and go support that means the world, not only to their family, but it really means so much more to everyone who needs to hear more about those issues. And we need to talk more about the stories so that they don't happen and continue to happen.
Injustice has been happening for years, and it's still increasing. It's not going anywhere now. It may be, decreasing a little bit, but it's still here. So I do agree, and I support peaceful protesting and just find out strategies of how to build stronger communities, because we are the people. Like, we create this country. So how are we gonna put our foots down and make everything just a better experience and a life for everyone? I went to my first protest I've ever been to in my life a few months ago, and I actually performed at the State House in Columbia, South Carolina. That was just a whole different kind of experience, but it's like you have to be there to feel the energy, to feel the power of people coming together and speaking together and just being positive. It was the Million Man March in Columbia, South Carolina. Everyone had to wear suits, dressed up in the heat. Women have on heels, walking. But it's beautiful and powerful. So it's just different ways that we can go about it. But we can't stop. We have to keep a foot on the pedal because it's so be accomplished.
And I think an important message to get out to people who may be in opposition or ambivalent or uncertain about these marches, these peaceful protests, these messages that people are trying to get out is that everyone should understand that pain doesn't have an expiration date. People have a right to express their concerns, their grievances, and that's such an integral part of social justice. That's what it's all about. So I think that even if these subjects are making you uncomfortable and maybe you don't know how to approach them, just at least come to the table with empathy. Empathy to understand pain that other people who are like you or unlike you have gone through.
And respect. That's what a lot of people lack, and that's what starts the disagreements, the fighting, the riots, the violence, because a lot of people lack respect in honor or understanding. Everyone comes from different places, respected, valuing people, just simply valuing others, just how you would value yourself.
And I think building off of the respect thing, I think no matter what your movement is, I think it's really important to also take a step back, because I know it's something that we all might be passionate about no matter what, but take a step back and maybe look at the opposing side and just, even if you don't agree, just listen. And I think that's something really important to do, because I think a lot of times, and it's great to be passionate, but sometimes I feel like we try to overrun someone else's views without first looking at their perspective. And their perspective might be coming from something very personal. So I think it's just really nice, even if you just want to listen and you don't agree at the end of the day, at least you know that your stance is coming from looking at both perspectives and being sure in your stance.
Yeah, and like you and Miss New York were saying, education is the most important way that we can start this conversation, start talking to people and really understand where they come from, why they believe what they believe surrounding those social justice issues, and try to find a common ground where we can all just agree either to disagree or to move forward in a way that's going to produce real change.
And I think when approaching those conversations, we have to be keenly aware to the mindset that we're framing our perspectives in, because especially in a time like now with protests going on, but if I'm asking myself more questions about valuables and property being destroyed than lives lost, then I think it's time that I change my perspective and really get myself together to understand the real issues at hand.
So I think we're closing on time, and so I think these were just very important and heavy topics, and I appreciate all that you guys have said, and I appreciate our viewers for watching and listening to everything.
Lastly, if you see something going on, if you see like racism happening, and you're definitely not racist, I think you should be courageous and say something or help, or just don't allow things just to happen, because that's how the cycle just continues. So address things that need to be addressed. I know sometimes you do need to mind your business and say, be protected, but if you can, like, always just help, be a good citizen or person, and just always put yourself in other people's shoes. Like, would you want somebody speaking to you that way? Would you want someone to do that to you? And if you have the ability to change that at that moment, then do so.
Yeah, I think that's super important, because in school I was always taught, if you see something wrong, then do something about it. And unfortunately, into adulthood, I feel like that message kind of got squandered a little bit. So that's super important to keep in mind. And I think that was enlightening for me to remember that.
And I would also like to add that growing up, I grew up in a predominantly white community, so I was a minority and I stuck out most of the time. And I'd experienced racism quite often, and most of it took place in school, where friends didn't hold each other accountable or they turned their back on you and things like that. But I think we should start holding each other accountable. If your friend's bullying someone because of their skin color or their ethnicity, maybe we should have a talk with that person and really get to their core values so that we can actually stop that hate, because it's just negativity and it produces more negativity as well.
And I think a big important takeaway when discussing social justice is understanding that when we break the social contracts of our society and stay divided, we'll never be whole. And that's not a future I want to see. So I hope we can come together and make a brighter, better, collaborative, and inclusive future.
And so, yeah, I experienced a lot of what you had talked about, and I was told, because I grew up in an interracial household, and so I always had an open view, but I was told that I wasn't black enough, or that, and just really nitpicked on like my features because it was different, and I went to predominantly Caucasian schools. But, you know, it made me who I am today, but I am so proud of the future and what we are working towards, and I think we can learn from the past for sure.
And we should be. We should all have the opportunity to be proud of who we are and where we come from, regardless of the challenges or what other people think of us. It's up to us to dictate our future and to promote our inner beauty and our well-being, and our happiness is what matters more than what other people conjure about us.
Absolutely. Alrighty. Well, thank you everyone for watching,